I can see a wonderful picture of you, obviously showing you performing on stage to a huge number of people. Wow. Hey,
Okay. Hey, hello, Mark Anthony on the other side of the pond.
Amazing. Wow. I didn't expect that. I mean, obviously the image is fantastic. I love that. You might be a little bit of Johnny Depp. Is it all right to say that?
That's all right to say that. I have been called much worse things.
Johnny Depp, come on, man. Johnny Depp's like he's awesome. He's one of the coolest dudes in the world. So I wouldn't take that or be offended by that in any shape or form. No, you look great. I love the look, and it's also a bit Prince. It's very much, and it's very original rock and roll.
Well, thank you very much. You have to be able to back it up with playing your instrument, of course. You can have all the look, but if you can't play, then it's no good. You have to play.
Stop showing off.
Hey, thank you so much for having me.
No, it's an absolute pleasure. It's actually James Clarkston. Thank you so much for doing an interview with ClusterView. And I've got to thank Ettore, because Ettore is the man. He keeps finding these wonderful musicians. I mean, I think my first interview on Zoom was with Louis Matoya, who's Four Non Blondes. He's an incredible guitar player. Tension Derby or Sananda Matre, if you know him. Considered one of the greatest guitarists on the planet. So, that was a fantastic start for me. And obviously here we are. You've got another incredible musician here. So it's just been lovely to speak to you and ask you a little bit about what you do. Because for me, I love guitars. I'm not the greatest guitar player. I can play acoustic guitar and everything else. I can write songs. I was always very much more guitar player as a songwriter. So,
right.
Everything else, I got so carried away with writing songs. I just, I can do licks and whatever else. But I just kind of just wanted to write that song, and get out and perform it. But, I've always been so impressed with the skill and the dexterity and the ability to kind of concentrate for long periods of time while you practice guitar, for people like yourself. I find that amazing. So I want to ask you, what or who inspired you to play guitar?
Well, I have a lot of influences. Originally, I'll show you a funny guitar I have right over here. When I was a kid, my first favorite group in the world was Kiss.
Oh, yeah. I can see some of that. Yeah, I get it. Yep.
So this is just a toy, a plastic guitar. But I grew up listening to rock, and I wanted to play rock. My influences were Randy Rhoads, who played with Ozzy Osbourne for years, because he was very expressive, played classical and rock. Sabbath. Yeah, he was with Ozzy after Black Sabbath. And I love Eddie Van Halen's playing also, very creative. Love Jimi Hendrix, love Tony Iommi, Angus Young. And I have an uncle who was in the U.S. Air Force, stationed in Spain for a few years when I was a kid. And he fell in love with flamenco guitar. He brought home some cassettes, and I listened to them and maybe a CD or two. And I discovered Carlos Montoya, the Gypsy Kings. And
the original, of course. Yeah, the ones flamenco. Absolutely.
So with this look, do you see yourself in me?
I do. Yeah, just about.
So I'm going to ditch these. This is just... Now, if you're wondering, I'm not a natural blonde, although I do have way more fun now.
Nice.
But I love the Beatles also. I kind of am a huge Beatles fan. Maybe you can see my yellow submarine back here.
Very nice. Oh, wow. Wow.
So I love diverse music, but guitar playing influences, Eddie Van Halen, Jimi Hendrix, Randy Rhoads.
Yeah, so you said that you're basically you like flamenco music, which again is quite unusual because flamenco is it's really hard to play, to be fair. And I've actually heard one of your songs, The Player. You could hear that flamenco kind of Mexican vibe in it. It's very beautiful.
Right.
So basically, it's unusual. So you're saying about you were inspired by all different sounds. Is that what kind of made you want to create that song, flamenco? Was it encouraging? Well, not encouraging, inspired, just want to play it?
Yeah. It's very expressive, which I just love. Classical. I play electric guitar. I've recorded and performed extensively with my electric guitars, but flamenco, nylon string, it's very expressive. And you're playing bass and melody at the same time. And you can tap on the body and you make it a rhythm instrument. And La Playa, that's actually the Spanish word for the beach. And I live by the beach in San Diego, California, just south of Los Angeles. And I enjoy the beach lifestyle. And it has, you're right, it has very much that coastal kind of Spanish, Mexican influence.
So what's your heritage though? Because I can see that you're a bit mixed. You kind of definitely look very much like Johnny Depp, you know, when you've got your glasses off. I know that again is a compliment. So,
well, thank you.
Yeah. So what's your kind of heritage?
My heritage, my mother's side is Mexican American of Mexican descent. And I was born and raised in a border town called El Paso, Texas. And I live in San Diego, California now. So on my mother's side, Mexican and Native American. On my father's side, Anglo-American of Scottish descent.
Okay. And so these mixed heritages, has that actually influenced your music as well? Because drawing from all different types of cultures and backgrounds and things like that? Was that natural to you?
It was pretty natural. I think a funny thing, I started out wanting to be exclusively rock. And as I listened to more music, I learned a lot of those easy songs, and they were fun to play and easy. And I started to dig a little deeper, and your style picks you. You don't really pick your style. And your style is, I guess, the sum of all of your influences. And for me, it would be rock and Mexican and Native American and Anglo-American. And I love the blues. I like jazz. I play all kinds of music. Basically, one of my favorite musician quotes is by Louis Armstrong, who once said, "There are only two kinds of music, good music and bad music, and I play the good kind."
Fantastic. Good stuff. So if you could choose to be in any band in any decade, what band would you choose to be in and why?
I would have loved to have been in the Beatles, of course. The Beatles are so classy. I think they brought a lot of England to America. When I hear Eleanor Rigby, when I hear Yesterday, I can imagine two-story buses. I can imagine the payphones. The Rolling Stones, which I like a lot also and have seen perform live, and they are fantastic. I think they sound more like a bluesy American band. I think the Beatles influenced America, and I think the Rolling Stones were influenced by America.
Wow.
But I would have loved to have been in the Beatles. I am a huge Beatles fan. I love their creative stuff. And I would say Beatles or the Stones in the 60s. I love the stuff that had Brian Jones. He played the sitar on Paint It Black, the piano on Let's Spend the Night Together. But I love so much music, you know.
Of course. And I love that. And I love that to me, having any love for the Beatles. I mean, I've been to Abbey Road, so I'm very close to Maida Vale. I'm very close, well, not close to where I live now, but I was very close to Maida Vale and Abbey Road. I could, the studios are there and available to people quite, readily. But when I think about music today, kind of like you're talking about the greats like the Beatles and how they influenced America. In the UK today, you don't really hear much rock music. I mean, it's like, and honestly, it's like the bands that are actually, or did smash it up recently in the last probably 10 years, are bands like the Kings of Leon, which are American bands. I mean, the only other band I would think about today who, if you talked about rock music, it'd be like Coldplay. What's happened in your mind? Is there a decline in rock music, or is it just something happened in the UK? Is this happening in America also?
It has happened in America also. I think a couple of things which I find are quite ironic. One of them is the internet has made it easier to produce music and to put it out there. Back when I first started recording in the 1990s, I have a relic of the past here, a cassette. of, believe it or not, that's me.
Wow. Oh,
So, you know, I actually did record.
I use tapes as well. I get it. Absolutely. Absolutely.
So it's become so simple to record at home that people who are not very serious about it do it, and they go out there and do it. The tastes have become, in my opinion, somewhat dumbed down. I think the demographics, the story of who is playing the music has become more important than the music. And I think a lot of music in the 70s, in the 1980s especially, it was the image that overshadowed it. And there was so much good musicianship. There was a lot of great songwriting, lots of great musical chops that were overlooked by people dismissing the image. Now, everything is the story of whatever the person's story is, and the music plays very little into it. I don't like that a lot of kids, they don't realize that, hey, there was music before where people played instruments, where it took practice to get very good at an instrument, to sing better and to harmonize and to be entertaining. And auto-tune, I think, has played a large role, and GarageBand on everyone's laptop. You've got people making music now that aren't musicians.
So you must, I don't know, I imagine being as good as you are and having all those instruments, you must have taught someone, or you must have done some guitar teaching at someone along the line. Yeah.
Yes, I have. Yes.
So when you're with a student, you know, how do you encourage them to continue playing? Because people get distracted. What do you do to make sure that they, you know, to keep playing and keep practicing? What, you know, what's the first thing you tell them?
You know, the three things I found that helped me the very most. First of all, what I tell them is practice, record yourself. In my day, hey, that meant get a boom box, put a cassette tape in, play a few chords, and then come back and practice a scale over it and improvise. If you didn't have someone to accompany, I'll tell them, get your cell phone, your voice recorder, or your computer, and play chords for a minute, and then play scales over it and practice. Another thing is playing with other people, going to see live music and watching other musicians. And the other thing is teaching. When you teach someone, even if you teach a friend at school, hey, you know that part of Here Comes the Sun, for example, on the capo, this thing, we put it on the 7th fret, and then play a D chord and do something like an arpeggio, like those little things. When you teach someone, you become better.
It easy. That is not easy. That takes years. That takes years.
Practice. All little steps. But when you teach someone, you get better.
Yeah, and the thing about, I find that kids, you know, you said to you, they're talking about the instruments being so easy for the kids to use. And when I say instruments, you know, programming, they can actually have little bits of music that actually they put together in a sequence and it creates songs. So it's like, what's the point for them to do that? But I want to move on though, because I think that's something that we're gonna have to work out. We're gonna have to see what comes next. You know, you just don't know what's gonna happen. There are bands out there. The industry's got to want to sign them. Do you know what I mean? Somehow they've got to find a way through, and it just takes a few, you know, really cool kids to change everything. You know, but they're gonna have to go back to the bands like Led Zeppelin, the Pixies, The Cure. They've got to go back to that, you know, and find that music. So it's going to be down to, a lot of it's going to be down to parents, kind of like taking the kids, go, look, listen to this music, you know, and maybe that might be it. But let me ask something. What's your most, I know you've told me something, when we chatted on the phone the other day, you mentioned something about a gig. And I wondered if you're going to mention this. What's the most memorable gig that you've done?
I have many. Music has opened a lot of doors in life for me. And a very unexpected, unlikely one was 19 years ago. I received a phone call from a local chamber of commerce that an ex-president of the United States was coming to my hometown to speak about international trade and about business. And that's actually me, believe it or not. I look different now.
George W. Bush.
So this is George H.W. Bush. This is his father.
Okay, there you
go.
The
first Bush. Yeah. So I received a phone call, and they wanted to book me to entertain at a VIP reception, which was basically a large group of business people who paid a pretty penny, a lot of money to be there and just receive a cocktail and appetizers. And I entertained and played background music. And at the end, they were so nice. They came and said, "We've enjoyed your music a lot. Can we take a picture with you?" And I said, "Oh, I would be honored." So I even gave him a couple of my CDs, and he said, "I didn't come here to rip you off. How much are they?" And he bought them, and his bodyguards quickly took everything. But it was a very exciting, very memorable gig.
Amazing. And very few people have those type of stories. Trust me, that would have been a massive deal. And I think you mentioned something as well about the Star Spangled Banner. Did you play that?
Yes, and I love the way that Jimi Hendrix played it. But this was one of the songs I played for the ex-President Bush that day.
So you know that basically, so you mentioned that. So Jimi Hendrix played the Star Spangled Banner at Woodstock.
Right, correct.
So you know that obviously the story of all of that and how America received that negatively. Apparently in the press they were saying that people thought he bastardized the song or bastardized that particular anthem. And that obviously that wasn't a positive thing. When I think about Jimi Hendrix, and now we're talking about him, I think of one of the greatest rock tragedies of all time. Can you think of another rock tragedy?
There are many sad stories. Jimi Hendrix, one of my favorite quotes of his is that when, I'm paraphrasing, but it was something to the extent of, "When the power of love overcomes the love of power, the world will know peace." There are trailblazers in life. Often it has been musicians. And there are other stories like that. One story that comes to mind to answer your question is Brian Jones of the Rolling Stones. He was an incredible musician. He named the band. He got them their first gig. He got them he taught Mick Jagger how to play the harmonica and the guitar. And that's him playing the piano on Let's Spend the Night Together. And sadly, he OD'd at home and drowned in his swimming pool. But there's tragic stories and there's wonderful stories. And those people change life. They change culture. They change the trajectory of culture at the moment and beyond.
Absolutely. Do you know another one which was very sad? Most people don't really know about that. But I remember, do you remember the Doors? You must know the Doors. Right. Do you like the Doors music?
Morrison?
Jim Morrison. That was very sad. Do you know how he died? Because obviously I heard stories that he basically he used to wear his jeans or his leather trousers too tightly, and that caused some kind of illness or whatever. What do you know as to the actual true reason why he died? What was the true cause of his death?
I think it's undetermined, and it's been speculated that it was a drug overdose and happened in the bathtub when he was living in Paris. And he wrote amazing music. There's a little bit of a connection between some of the unorthodox behavior, a little bit between the craziness, bringing out some of the immense creativity of some of these people. And he was really a tortured soul. He wrote about what he knew in life, and that's where some of the most expressive music comes from. I love the movie The Doors by Oliver Stone, if you've seen it. If not, it's a great one.
Yeah, definitely. think the future of rock's gonna look like? We know we've talked about this, but what do you think? What do you think the future of rock's look like?
I think it's going to come back. It's inevitable that things are cyclical. And the younger generation, the kids who are teens now and younger teens and preteens, they're going to rebel against the auto-tuned music, against the stuff that's manufactured on computers, by going back and saying, hey, you know what? I can play a Doors song. This is Riders on the Storm. Or they might play something else, you know.
Love it.
You know, there's...
You got any Hendrix? You got a little Hendrix riff?
And the wind cries, Mary. I love Hey Joe.
Yeah, do you ever do covers and things like that? Do you ever do cover performances with that, man?
I do. I love to take a song and make it my own. In addition to playing my own creations, I like taking something that's not instrumental and playing it that way. So if I take something like a Beatles song, like Yesterday, I'll play the melody and the chords at the same time. Like,
you're a true musician. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Do you know what? I've got quite a few questions for you, and I want to just go through a few of them. I've written some down. So can I just go through these questions? They're quite interesting questions. So let's just run through them. You have a chance to change the world for good, or have £50 million. What are you going to choose?
To change the world for the better?
Yeah, you have a chance, or you get £50 million. What are you going to choose?
Well, I think I would choose the £50 million because I could influence a lot of change while living a little bit more comfortably.
Hey, you're too smart. That's your fault. You're too smart. You want to enjoy everything. I get it. All right, okay. All right, you can have Hendrix's famous left-handed Stratocaster, or you can perform for 100,000 people. What do you choose?
Wow, that's a tough one. I love Hendrix. I've got a left-handed Stratocaster in the house right now. I think I would perform for 100,000 people, and I would be able to tell them how much I love Hendrix and how he influenced me also.
Love it. I love your answers. Okay, what's your favorite guitar effect? And can you give any budding musicians watching a tip?
I'll show you my favorite guitar effect of electronics. This device here called the Harmonist. Nice. And the reason is because you can create a two-guitar sound. So when I'm playing a melody or a solo, if I'm doing something which sounds like this, I can at the same time set it to play a third or a minor sixth or a fifth. So it will sound more like another part going at the same time as this. And I would recommend don't overuse distortion. I used to be about tons of pedals, and their effects, you know, they are like spice. You eat any kind of food that you like, a little bit of spice is good, but if you make it all spice, you ruin it. You don't want too much salt in the soup.
Definitely. No, absolutely. And I'm sure anyone, I think with distortion, you've got to use it for, when people start off using a lot of distortion, don't they? But obviously you work out how best not to use it and to reduce it down. And that just takes time anyway. So what's next for you, James Clarkston? What is next on the agenda in terms of gigs and things like that? What's the next plan?
Well, I am putting the finishing touches on a new CD, and it's called Flamenco Serenade. And it's on a website called NouveauFlamencoDownload.com. And there's some free songs on there. There's some which you can buy for a cheap price. And putting that together getting the physical copies completed and going on tour, going up the west coast of California and to the southwest, and hopefully make my way across the pond in 2023 and play in the UK. I would love to.
Fantastic. So
yeah.
And so what's your most preferred part of America to perform in? And where are you based? Where do you actually live? Which part of this huge country or continent? What is it? Is America's a continent, isn't it?
It's a country. It has three countries. Yes.
Okay.
Canada and Mexico are also part of North America. Okay. So North America consists of those three countries. I'm near Los Angeles. So the major city, I'm just to the south of Los Angeles in a city called San Diego. And it's on the Mexican border. And it has a lot of the wonderful things that Los Angeles has, only a little bit less congestion and not quite as expensive to live in. And the beaches are a lot prettier here than in Los Angeles. I love to travel. I love to go and play wherever I can. I play in Texas, where I came from, in the southwestern United States, in New Mexico, Arizona. I've played on the East Coast also, and I really need to get to Europe and do some performing over there. So that's the next step, is taking a long tour and promoting this new music.
Brilliant. Well, I really hope you get to do that. And I hope what we do is we get your stuff out, we get to people to see you and get to find out more about you. And obviously they can find you through the links that we'll post or place on this interview anyway. So that's fantastic. Right. So I've got a few questions before we leave. I've got a few questions for you. Some multiple choice questions. Okay.
Okay.
Fight or flight?
I would say flight, because you get to fight another day.
Okay. Yeah. Great. Hippie or hip hop?
Hippie.
Okay. Great. Love or hate?
Love.
Biden or Trump? Do you know what? It's been an absolute pleasure. Okay, James Clarkston. This is the end of our interview. Absolute pleasure speaking to you on behalf of ClusterView.com and Ettore. Thank you so much. And continue what you're doing and just support what we're doing. And all of us as musicians and creatives come together and creating this network of, lovers of rock, lovers of all sorts of music. Great things can happen. So we thank you so much for being a part of what we're doing.
Well, thank you for having me. And music is just very special. It improves cognitive skills, listening skills, motor skills, and it is a hell of a lot of fun, and it's very addictive. So it's a wonderful thing for people to do. And musicians need people to come listen to musicians. So, Absolutely. And feel the music. Yes. Thank you so much. It's a pleasure, and I appreciate it very much. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for letting us into your house. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.